We mentioned the hurricane just a bit ago, but I want to touch on the I don't want to say the irony, but it's kind of sad that that Trump he went there first
on
before
the scene.
Kamala or Joe Biden, which is just such a joke.
Well, they all make excuses. Well, we don't want to interfere with
Yeah,
interfere. Interfere with what? First of all, you don't even need anybody to protect you because nobody even cares about you.
Yeah. And so he finally and she finally went yesterday. And so they promised like $750.
Oh my God.
For
What a
each person.
slap in the
These
face.
people lost their homes, their pets, maybe their children. Some people died.
Horrible.
And they're offered $750, while just a few days earlier, Ukraine is given, I don't know, like $8 billion, $2.4 billion. I don't know what the number is, but several billion dollars. Yeah.
Now this is a slap in the face to the American people, but ultimately, if you look at the map, okay, that's red country. It's deep red country. So why would they care? Because if those people can't vote, that's all the better for us. That's what they're thinking.
Right.
Well, they can't vote. Well, how many people are there? We don't even know exactly what the size of the population that's actually affected, because we can't really get to some of those areas. So we don't know if some people got out, some didn't get out. But think about this. The whole town, like Asheville, whatever, completely gone. Where are they going to vote?
Yeah.
This has to be set up now. Do you think anybody's rushing to get it done?
No, true.
I wonder.
No, if the hurricane struck anywhere else, any blue states, all the Democrats would be freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
They'd be raising a bunch of money. They'd make sure everything was working properly.
Yeah.
But there's hillbillies that are trying to fix the roads because the government won't step in and do it.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk.
They don't care. And if this isn't a sign of their lack of care and compassion, I don't even know what is. I mean, this is over a week already. Think about going for a week without eating or without drinking, without having, sufficient medical, without even knowing maybe what happened to some of your family members, without having communication.
Right.
And it's hardly in the news. I mean, it's been in the news, but it's been like, little pieces, but they're not putting the whole story together so that the American public goes, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And people who are giving, their money is being held up.
Right.
They don't want to let it. So the government is trying to control the entire narrative.
Yeah. FEMA keeps saying they're out of money, which isn't true, because the stopgap bill that was just signed by President Biden a couple weeks ago allocated about 3 months worth of funds for FEMA.
Wow.
And instead of spending it here where they should be, they're spending it on illegal aliens and funding phones for them and healthcare and whatnot, instead of closing down the border and using this money to help people who are in dire need in our country.
If I were to read about this, if let's say, I lived in a bubble for the past 30 years. If I were to read this, I would say, wow, this is a nice story. Who made this up? This can't be happening in America.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. But yet here it is. It's actually happening. People are dying in parts of America, and we have the majority of our Congress and Senate and leadership not doing anything about it.
No.
Yeah. I just want to read a post here. This was written on the 29th, so 4 days ago. North Carolina would have 19,522 working Starlink kits available today. Again, that was 4 days ago.
Yeah.
After Hurricane Helene had the FCC not revoked in bad faith the grant that was awarded to SpaceX as the winning bidder. So that's roughly 20,000 Starlink kits.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That could have helped a lot of people.
Sure.
But they shut them down. They wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
Now, why would you shut down? Think about it for a minute. What's the reason? Can you even think of a reason? I can't even think of a reason. Why would you shut it down? Why would you not allow someone to help people have some kind of access to internet?
Yeah, nothing that paints the federal government in a good light.
No.
No good reason for that.
No, it's all negative, and it's all done for political reasons. This is a political attack on America.
Yeah.
I think we need to, kind of send this word out.
Yeah.
Because people just don't. I talked to a couple people yesterday it was, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I heard there was a little flood." I go, "No. You haven't even turned on the news, have you?
Right.
You haven't even really researched what's happening. This is huge. My sister lives down there, and of course she's far away. She's out of the area that was flooded or whatever. But she said it's amazing. She goes, a lot of people here are kind of banding together, wanting to do something.
Yeah.
And nope.
Yeah, they won't let them.
They can't get anywhere because any form of transportation, they close down the roads. They close down access. They close down people with helicopters.
Yeah.
They close down people with small planes.
Yep.
They close down, listen to this, you cannot fly a drone over there unless it's government.
Yeah, I heard they were closing airspaces.
Oh, yeah, because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were visiting these certain areas. They closed down the airspaces for protection.
Yeah, we need to protect them because there's many people want to kill them. Yeah,
Right.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, that's
Crazy.
It's crazy. But anyway, so J.D. Vance debated Tim Walz the other night, which...
Yeah, that was a massacre.
Yeah.
it was a beautiful massacre because actually, Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, he's actually, to me, if outside of politics, he's a likable guy.
Yeah. You think so?
He just is. He's just the kind of guy like you realize he's a knucklehead. You know what I mean? He's kind of like one of those guys you can make fun of, you can laugh at, whatever. But as far as politically speaking, I don't even know how he got to be governor.
Yeah.
How is it? There must be, and I don't want to offend a lot of people that in his state, but there got to be a lot of stupid, uninformed people living there because they elected this guy. But the difference in education, the difference in, I think, confidence, self-confidence was completely evident.
Yeah. Well,
JD has it.
What can you expect from someone who's friends with school shooters?
Yeah, right.
It was obviously a mistake.
I mean, I feel bad because even when he was asked to ask why he said that, he didn't say, I just misspoke.
Yeah.
I didn't mean I'm friends with the shooters. I'm friends with people who were involved, in the incidents of the shootings.
Yeah.
But, he was obviously nervous. I mean, he's outside of his comfort zone. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've got to take that in and say, okay, this guy's going to be the vice president.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I don't think he should be vice president.
Even though you misspoke, it still speaks to your ability to be able to think on your feet.
Right. I mean, and you should have some self-confidence. If you're going to be vice president, let's not say, okay, I'm just a knucklehead, I'm just an old guy. You got to have some modicum of self-confidence if you're going to be in that sort of leadership position. Because what happens when you get in a room with Putin and you're nervous?
Yeah. Well, the fun part about JD was he was slapping everybody. It didn't matter because they didn't even know they got slapped.
Right.
He was slapping them down, but he was doing it in such a classy way.
Yeah.
That they were like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was that likable, and I did happen to tune into a couple other stations. PS, whatever it is. MSNBC, PMS NBC. But anyhow, they had to admit the fact that he's just a likable guy.
Yeah,
he came across in a way that people who thought he was some kind of devil in disguise,
right?
Like, well, no, he's not.
No, they tried to paint him as a weirdo. Remember all those stories? JD Vance is weird.
Yeah,
it just didn't play when people saw him on TV.
No, didn't play out well.
I liked when the moderators tried fact checking him.
Yeah,
and he shut them down and then corrected the fact check and did very well. I saw a lot of liberals. They would just cut the section where he said you guys said you weren't going to fact check, and they posted it everywhere. Oh, he's whining because they're calling out his lies, but he did. If you just
but they still talked over him in the end of that when he was trying to get the point
and
across. They wanted him to stop. You're going too far, because he was getting to the facts that were going to hurt them. With the truth. And nobody wants the whole truth, let's face it.
No.
The debate is not about truth. It's only about, bringing across your side, and we paint it in the best light as possible.
Right. Yeah. There's another small story that not a lot of people are talking about. This took place in Arizona. So people are registering to vote down there, and as they are all over the country. And it's come out that about 218,000 voters have not provided proof of citizenship. There was news that it was only 120,000 voters that weren't registered properly, but it's since come out that this number is a lot larger than it looked like at first.
Huge.
So the Supreme Court of Arizona ruled that these voters do not have to prove that they are citizens in order to vote in November, but they have to prove that they're citizens in order to vote in local and state elections, not federal.
Tell me if that's not. That's how can that be even real? In other words, how can the average American look at that and go, well, gee, the judges ruled right. I mean, there's completely bias.
Yeah.
It's wrong. And yet this judge knew that the chances of this getting to the Supreme Court and have a ruling on it before the election are probably slim to none.
Yeah, the Supreme Court doesn't like to get involved in these cases.
No, they don't like to. So they're going to take their chances and roll the dice. But that's a lot of votes.
Yeah.
And especially when they know that, Trump has really kind of taken Arizona, Nevada, all that whole area. He's really grown in numbers. So,
And the margin for these states that he lost in the 2020 election was like 10,000 votes,
Small.
15,000 votes, extremely small. So you're talking about like 20 times the votes they would need in order to take the election away from him again. And you can say that they didn't cheat last time, but even if you just look at things like this, never mind them registering illegal aliens and whatnot, they're registering people that they call it a mistake. They call it a glitch in the system.
Yeah.
But there's no charitable way to read this, especially when you have the court's ruling that it's fine.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with our elections.
Yeah, right.
Nothing wrong at all. It's perfect. I mean, Mr. Vance, can't you admit that, Trump lost the election?
Right.
See, they're always trying to get to that in order to quench it because they don't want people to recognize that, no, we have a problem in our election system. Because once people lose faith in voting, which if Trump loses this election, I can't see how. I think a lot of people are going to be disillusioned, and probably some great chaos is going to come out of this.
Yeah,
Well, we
probably.
can already see what's going to happen under her administration. We're seeing it now. Disasters when they don't care. Wars in the Middle East. I mean, the strike. America's going to hell.
Yeah.
And people need to wake up. And you got to vote for Trump. Otherwise, you're kind of delusional.
That's what we've been touting for an entire year.
Right.
The significance and the importance of a coming election on November 4th, because we don't have another chance. It's not like, well, if we mess this up, we'll have, no, we won't. Because the deep state is so entrenched in the federal government. We're talking 90+% of everybody who works in the federal government is not elected. These are unelected people that are actually running the country. Just like right now, we know Biden's not running the country.
Right.
What's he running? Maybe running to the toilet. That's about the only thing he can run to. He can't run up the stairs nor down. So, he's not handling this country right now. And I'm sure Kamala Harris is not running the country. So maybe it's Obama by telephone or whatever, in the ear, microphones. But we're in a very serious place as far as the nation goes. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned wars. There's a war in Israel against them and Hamas, although they've had more than a one-front war. It's like a seven-front war. Just recently, I was listening to some stuff about what happened with Hezbollah and how they eliminated the leader of Hezbollah. The way Bibi Netanyahu did it was just excellent.
Classic.
Whether you like him or not, you just have to admit that he knows how to run his country.
Yeah.
So what he does is he leaves the country, comes to the U.S., to New York, for a gathering of the UN to make a speech. And half the country's upset. They're like, why is he leaving? We're in a war. Why is he going to the UN? This makes no sense. What they didn't know was that prior to him leaving, the military asked him, if we find out where the leader of Hezbollah is, do we have your permission to take him out? And he's like, yeah, you can do it. So he leaves, and people are all upset. He's giving his speech, and as he delivers this speech, the Israeli army takes out the leader of Hezbollah. And so it was just a perfect demonstration of how a good leader takes care of his country and leads it.
He can delegate.
Yeah, whether you like him or not,
not.
you just have to admit that, this is somebody who knows how to run his country. And so that prompted Iran to respond, whether they really wanted to or not, probably to save face, firing off rockets at Israel.
But just think where we are right now. Should Harris be elected as president, I could tell you China is going to go in for Taiwan.
Yeah.
Russia's going to do all that they can. The Ukraine-Russia war is going to escalate beyond what is already happening, and we're not even being told about that. The death count and the property damage and all that, we're not even being told about. And who knows what's going to happen with Iran and Israel?
Yeah.
Because this could seriously escalate, and it can escalate very quickly.
Yeah. And if it does, we get dragged in. There's no way we don't.
Or we don't, which would mean we have apocalyptic happenings right before our very eyes. Because we know that in the last day war, all the countries line up against Israel. there's no savior,
True. Yeah.
on earth.
Right.
There's not another nation to come to Israel's aid, even the United
Yeah.
States. So either it's done, I've said this many times in the past, either the United States is unable to respond or unwilling.
Unwilling. Yeah.
And that's even worse.
Too good for us.
But that's where we could be. Wow.
So on that happy note, let's get to Ask the Pastor.
We have to use scripture against the enemy in order to get him to flee. You got to stick with the word, though. You can't hit him with anything else. It's got to be the word of God.
Welcome back to Ask the Pastor. Today's question is, does more faith yield better results from God? Will God answer our prayers if we have more faith?
Ooh.
So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I heard this story of this young guy whose dad died. And his question was, if he had had more faith, would his dad have lived? And he pointed to some stories in the Bible about faith being almost seemingly a prerequisite to receiving healing. And we've got the story of the woman with the issue of blood, and she grabs onto the hem of Jesus' garment. We've got the story of the man with his son who's demon-possessed, and it says he believed in doctors and whatnot. And when he came to Jesus, Jesus looked at him and said, just believe. And then he healed him. And so it seems like this guy's question was, if we have faith or if we have more faith, will that yield better results in healing?
Yes, you're at fault. No, I can't help it. But interestingly enough, today I actually posted something on Facebook because I was watching some video or something, and it was interesting because it was a little video clip about The Chosen, and it was the scene about the centurion who came to Jesus, and he came to him with a request. He said, my servant is sick, and can you heal him? And Jesus said, let's go. And he basically said, you don't need to go. I'm a leader like you. And, if I say go or come or they go.
Right.
All you have to do is speak, and I know it'll happen. And Jesus' response was, I haven't seen faith like this, not in all of Israel. And he was amazed. And the scene, the way it was played out in The Chosen, is pretty powerful. In fact, the centurion partly admitted, it really isn't my servant, it's my son. And so that kind of embellished the story a little, which made it, even more intriguing. And Jesus, the way he answered, the way he responded, is the way I think Jesus would have responded to the centurion, the same way, with compassion, with mercy, with love. And was it really about his faith? Because, if it was, then if the centurion didn't have faith and he came to Jesus and says, hey, you're such a miracle worker. Why don't you heal my servant who's sick? What would Jesus have done? See, because God moves on faith.
Yeah.
Everything, as a Christian, everything we receive is by faith. So there is some essence of truth to the idea of more faith, better results, but not really.
Okay.
Because it's a matter of the heart, but it's also a matter of the will of God.
Yeah.
Because any circumstance or situation that we see in the Bible, any story, any parable, this was God's will coming to pass. In other words, the orchestrated situation, like with the centurion, didn't take Jesus by surprise.
Right.
Okay, this was going to happen. It was orchestrated by God for that particular reason, for that particular moment, that God be glorified.
Yeah.
So in essence, there is some of the sovereignty of God involved in it. But that doesn't negate our ability, or I should say our obligation, to be people of faith and believe God. But this is the way you have to resolve it. If you lost your dad, I lost my dad when I was 15. I wasn't Christian, I could say. I went to a Catholic, grammar school, high school, but it was kind of meaningless to me. I didn't have a personal, intimate relationship with Christ till I was 27. So at that point in time, let's say I was saved and my dad died like instantaneously. He came home, felt some pains in his chest, went and laid down in the bedroom. My mother went and checked on him like whatever, half hour, 20 minutes later, whatever. And the guy who took him home was still there in the house. I came in the door. My mother went in the room, screamed, and said, whatever. And my dad was dead. So it was like, did that have to do with anybody's faith? No. I mean, because if you weren't even aware of it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's like somebody going for a ride in a car and they drop dead. It's
Right,
like,
okay.
you know. So listen, there are things that are going to happen. The Bible says that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. In other words, good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. That's just part of life.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. But where our faith comes into play is when it is a situation that we have some skin in the game on. In other words, we have something to say about it.
Okay.
Maybe you're looking for a job, or you're looking for something better for your family, or someone that you know gets a bad report of sickness or disease. Does faith matter? Of course it does. Will it change the circumstance? Here's what faith says. It doesn't matter if it changes the circumstance. I have faith in God. I believe in him. I trust him. I lean on him. I rely on him. And regardless of the outcome, I still have faith in God.
Right.
That's the faith that we need to have,
Yeah.
which basically says, I'm not guaranteed a result. Now, you'll hear faith teachers and preachers and whatever, talk, well, I can, I have authority and I can speak the word. And there's a truth to that as well. But the part that we don't know enough about as human beings, not just as Christians, but as humans, the part that we don't know enough about regarding God is God is above us.
Yeah.
He's above us in his thinking, his ways, his thoughts. Everything are so far above us that we can't comprehend why things happened. I look back on my life and I go, maybe I'm where I am today because my father died when I was 15.
Right.
Maybe I would have been dead already, or I would have been involved in doing things that who knows?
Yeah.
And I have to have faith and trust that God's perfect plan is working out in my life.
Yeah, I mean, if you read Philippians, Paul talks about rejoicing, and he says it so many times. I think it's like the main theme throughout the book about joy. But he doesn't say rejoice in happy circumstances or rejoice in happy things in your life. He says rejoice in God, and even in suffering, rejoice. Again, I say rejoice. That seems to be the theme of that book.
Yeah.
And then we take Paul as an example. He had a thorn in his side, and he prayed to God that God would remove it, but God didn't. And if we read throughout the Bible, we see that God uses suffering and circumstances that we deem as bad to sanctify us and to make us more into Christ's image.
Yeah, the idea of being joyful, which is a form of peace, because when you can only have joy when you have peace. The idea of having joy in the midst of tribulation or trouble or bad things that happen in your life, that's to me like the essence of Christianity.
Yeah.
That means you have full trust and faith in God. And so from that comes that joy, that peace.
Yeah.
But it's not something that happens quickly.
No.
It's something I could talk about it now, 42 years, knowing the Lord, that I can honestly say I understand what that means. So that doesn't make me any better than anybody else.
Right.
It just simply is a matter of experiencing that, things are going to happen, both good and bad, but having trust in God goes way beyond all that.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. What about you? You're my thorn in the flesh sometimes. I put up with it, right? I got peace.
But do you have faith to remove me?
To what?
To remove the thorn from your...
Oh, why would I want to do that? Because sometimes the thorn is good for you,
It sanctifies.
right? Well, you could both be a thorn sometimes.
Yes, sir.
We all have thorns in our life. They don't necessarily have to be people. It could be a situation or circumstances, things that happen in life.
Yeah.
So our first option, our first thought is usually, let's get rid of the problem.
Yeah.
I've learned that, well, maybe I need to see what God wants me to see in this and why before I pray to remove it.
Right.
Because you could pray, but if it's not the Lord's will, then
Nothing will happen.
you're asking amiss and nothing will happen. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like this magical little... Faith isn't like something we just have when we want a miracle. Like, oh, I have faith for it, and I'm going to believe, and then when or if it doesn't happen, we're done. Like, we're done with God. We're done with faith. Well, it didn't happen, so God's not real, or I'm not going to have this much faith next time. It's more of a balanced thing. Like, you just have it constantly.
And I think you really hit it really well there. I do. I think you hit the point right on the head, because so many people look at faith as like some kind of incantation, some kind of miracle, formula. If you do this and have enough faith to rub the lamp the right way, poof, out comes the genie.
Yeah.
This is nothing. The faith in God is like saying, I have faith in, pick a particular person in your life, maybe a boss or somebody you work for. And say, I have faith in my boss. We're a small company, we're growing, but I have faith that the company's going to be successful. I believe in him. It's something that goes beyond just your will. It's something that you're all in on. And having faith in God is I'm all in. I trust God. I believe God. And, if God has a decision that I don't really agree with, I believe it's going to work out for my good.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the hard part, because especially in Western culture, America, we want the results we want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I don't get the result I want, then I'm going to be mad at God. And like you said, sometimes people walk away from God, Christianity, because someone died and they said they had faith, or they were praying to God that God wouldn't, allow them to die, and they still died.
Right.
And that's a twofold problem. One is I don't think they were taught correctly, and so they went off kind of half-cocked, believing an untruth.
Yeah.
God still loves that person as well as he loves you. He hears your prayer, but he's got a plan that goes beyond that.
Right.
And as Christians, we have to come to the place where we can actually say, okay, I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. I'm actually kind of angry that things happened the way they did, but I'm going to believe it's for my good.
Right.
I don't know how. Maybe that's the start of getting to the place where you can be, I don't even know if I'm at there, but I'm better. Where it's like I can say to most situations or circumstances that happen that I don't like, I can say, okay, Lord, I trust you and I know you mean good here. I just don't see it yet. Help me to see it.
So we sort of have to like shift our focus. Instead of putting faith in the miracle that we want, we put faith in God. So even when that miracle may not happen, it's not our faith. Like we believe for it, we hope it happens, we pray for it, but ultimately we put our faith in God's will.
Yeah.
So
ultimately, that's really it. It's faith in him. Everything about faith is about him.
Right.
It's not about us. It's not about what we want. But we want to make it about what we want.
Yeah.
And it's really all about him.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you, Pastor Mike, for the insight. If you have any questions, leave them down below. We'll get to them next time.